Hello, guys, and welcome back to Turf Moor House TV. As usual, it's typical old me. No Kate today. She's watching in the background. But thanks for tuning in the other day. If you were around for the third kit review, it does mean a lot that you was tuning in. As you can see, we are here to speak about Burnley against Norwich. This Saturday's clash at Turf Moor, and I am not confident. As I say, the stats are there. In the league, we haven't won there since January. Usually Turf Moor is a fortress. But first of all, let's take a look at Saturday's game and what's to come. And without further ado, we clearly have a Norwich fan in the house. Lewis, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I wish we were talking in different circumstances, mate, because the idea of Burnley fans perhaps not being confident in terms of approaching this game, you should hear what the kind of Norwich community are like. We're not feeling confident, and yeah, this is going to be a real 6-pointer, and it's going to be a fascinating one to watch. And I feel like this live stream is just going to be us just being really pessimistic, but I'm looking forward to it, mate. I'm doing well.
No worries. But first of all, thank you for coming on. It means a lot that you've come onto the channel. But second of all, give a plug to your channels and what you've got coming up and going on.
Yeah, thank you, mate. So I run a YouTube channel called Norwich City Central. And yeah, do similar content to you, match previews, match reviews. Been really enjoying match day experiences. Of course, it's been 18 or so months with COVID and that being a real disruption. And football's all about the fans. It's all about kind of the terraces and going to the game. So I've been looking forward to doing match day experiences again. But yeah, just generally match reviews, match previews, match day experiences, interviews, and all that good stuff on Norwich City Central.
Brilliant. So, guys, if you are new around here, as I say, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to Lewis's channel, Norwich City Central. And I'm guessing it's not just Norwich stuff, it's obviously some Premier League content in there as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, do fire on over there. Show Lewis some support. Another content creator, just like myself. We're all in this together. So, everybody needs a bit of backing every now and again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you for that, mate.
No problem at all. So first of all, obviously, just shy of 2 months in terms of football, just gone. How do you feel it's gone for Norwich so far?
Yeah, well, it's not been great, has it? 6 games in, 0 points, minus 14 goal difference. Yeah, it couldn't have gone a lot worse, really. And what's interesting with Norwich in the Premier League, we've never mixed. I think on the last four, possibly 5 occasions, Norwich have gone straight back down, and we deserve that kind of yo-yo tag. But this season, I think Norwich City fans were feeling more confident. Of course, we had that really bad season under Daniel Farke, but we've won 2 championship titles, and Daniel Farke has done some incredible things for the club. And we've actually spent money this time around. Norwich have been known for, obviously, like yourself, not necessarily having the financial backing at this level. So that's been difficult. But Norwich City have had that backing this time around. Of course, losing the likes of Buendia was going to hurt us, but we've reinvested it and we've spent quite heavily on some really exciting talent. Rashita, Zolis, 2 £10 million creative players. And we've spent kind of 50-60 million pounds. A couple of players in there, like Ozan Kabak, who was at Liverpool, was a loan option to buy 15 million. Matthias Norman, a really well-regarded central defensive midfielder, for a similar price. So we've spent the money this time around, and Norwich City fans, I think, we're feeling confident heading into the season. But it's just been an absolute nightmare show where we don't look good going forward. We look awful at the back, and as you mentioned to me earlier, mate, we do look like the whipping boys, because until we get that right balance, I promise you Burnley will beat us if we continue to play how we have this season.
Well, who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, I suppose we owe you, because as a thank you for taking Ben Gibson off our hands. So that's another plus. I mean, he clearly wasn't, just didn't cut it in claret and blue, to be honest. I think obviously at the time, with his first move from Middlesbrough, he's, he didn't just slot into the system. I think he expected to sort of like waltz into that side and get a lot of game time. We all know what Dash is like. He doesn't change. He sticks to what he knows. Sometimes as well, you can see it if you've got Ben Mee there and Ben Gibson. You've got two left-footed defenders. Some managers are a bit like, I'm not quite up for that. I mean, how's Ben Gibson been while in, the Canary Yellow?
Yeah, the Ben Gibson's one's been really interesting because he was at Middlesbrough for several years and was just being, excellent performances in the Championship. And I think he might have had a good season with Middlesbrough, possibly in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, I think we moved to Chelsea, weren't he, and things like that.
Yeah. And I think you spent, 10, 15 million on him as well? You spent a lot of money
Yeah.
on him. I think he was knocking around the England squad as well. I don't think he got a cap, but I think in that kind of provisional squad. So he was really highly regarded. And just didn't work out as Burnley for kind of the reasons you mentioned. But no, Ben Gibson's done really well. Excellent in the Championship. We got him on a loan deal from you guys in that Championship season with a option to buy if we got promoted. And had an excellent partnership with Grant Hanley at the back. But there's a massive difference, isn't there, mate, between the Championship and the Premier League, as you know. And Grant Hanley, who is absolutely exceptional for us in the Championship. I think he got our second best player of the season and deserved it, but he's not cut it in the Premier League. Just lots of mistakes. And Ben Gibson's had limited opportunities. And I think Ben Gibson, as you said, was expecting probably to come to Norwich and be, Premier League centre-back, kind of, a first-team starter. And that hasn't really happened. We've moved to a back three last week, and Ben Gibson got, I think, maybe his first start of the season, or his first start for a while. So if we continue with that back three, I expect Ben Gibson to play. But excellent in the Championship, but the Premier League still remains to kind of be seen at the moment, mate.
It is definitely different kettle of fish. Obviously, we've had quite a few players that have back and forth with our clubs. I mean, Robbie Brady was one of them. Old glass ankles, as we like to call him nowadays, because he's just constantly injured. But obviously, he's no longer with us.
Really well for us in the Premier League. How's he been for you? Because I've seen, he's had some moments of brilliance, but it just doesn't, as you say, injuries doesn't seem to do it consistently.
Yeah, it is one of those where, when he was with us, obviously we let him go at the end of last season. So I think he's available on a free still. But it's one of those, as I say, noticeable goals against Blackburn in the Cup, which is always nice against your rivals. His debut, the equaliser against Chelsea from a free kick, phenomenal. On his day, he was absolutely brilliant. But I think now, when you look at him, he's getting to that point now where he's hitting 30, 32 probably now, 31, 32. You've got Dwight McNeil out on that left. It's quite self-explanatory, but he was decent, but it's just the run of games. He was very unlucky. You'd get, two decent games and then he's crocked. I think there were a few times where he's come back, had 20 minutes and had to go off. So, that's how bad it was getting. Other than that, moving on from players to managers, you've sort of done what we did in terms of, obviously, we had Sean Dyche. We went down, we kept hold of him, we went back up. He's still there. You've done the same. It's not a lot of clubs that do that these days. I mean, do you think Farker is the man that can still change Norwich's fortunes? Do you think he's sort of got to instill that Burnley mentality in a way, without trying to make it very Burnley oriented, but sort of instill that one game at a time, and that one win could set off, a really good run of results?
Yeah, exactly, mate. I think a lot of Norwich City fans kind of like to actually have lots of comparisons with Burnley, as you say, for the reasons you mentioned. Obviously, some managers who've got their clubs brilliantly promoted, kind of to the league, and then obviously has some misfortune. I think I look at the Farker and Dyche comparison, and I think the differences are quite simple in the fact that Sean Dyche has shown that he can adapt to his level perfectly well, and tactically is very astute, in my opinion. And has that real good mentality amongst the group where all your players work so hard for one another. With Daniel Farker, it's really difficult, and he's given me some of the best football, and some Norwich fans, just incredible football. You know, we won the championship title 2 times in a row with 97 and 94 points. We are just
Phenomenal.
A beautiful team to watch in the championship, where we play with energy, aggression. But for whatever reason in the Premier League, it didn't. Well, many reasons for the Premier League, it didn't work 2 years ago. Injuries and obviously some of the stuff he did. But honestly, a lot of Norwich City fans just don't feel confident with Daniel Farke, and I think the reason is at the Premier League level, and the reason is just tactically is quite inept at this level. I think when things are working well for him, when he doesn't have to think about when he has his game plan and when everything's played at his level, like in the Championship where teams don't press, is okay. But at this level in the Premier League, he just looks a little bit out of his depth. And I would love to see it work for Farke. I really would, because he's given us some beautiful football in the past. But I haven't seen anything on the pitch this season to suggest that. You know, we got 21 points last season. I haven't seen anything to suggest we're going to get that this season around, despite spending a lot of money. So I'm worried at the moment. Farke's, you probably give him a few more games to see what he can do. But yeah, fortunes need to turn quickly, and Burnley is one of those games where it's a good opportunity to do that.
Definitely. I mean, Farke strikes me as a manager that's very similar to when Huddersfield was up, and David Wagner. He sort of instilled that belief, and it paid off. But in the Premier League, it quite didn't work. And obviously, we saw him eventually lose his job. But then, obviously, sometimes it can come back to bite you in the backside. I look at the team, for instance. Yes, you lost Buendia. You managed to keep hold of Max Aarons, however we're pronouncing that. Todd Cantwell, you've managed to keep hold of. These are 2 players that pretty much were really good players, touted for big things the last time they were in the Premier League. And, the fact that you managed to still keep hold of such talents in the Championship, you've managed to retain them again this season as well. I suppose it's one of those where if they were to hit the Hearts, you'd obviously think, oh, well, if we do go down again, it's a case of we'll probably lose these 2 next. But, they're 2 very young and, up-and-coming English talents as well. They've still got bags of age behind them, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. You made a really interesting comment about the Huddersfield model. I completely agree. And in fact, our sporting director, who's done so many great things behind the scenes, Stuart Webber, actually recruited Wagner to Huddersfield, and obviously is now our sporting director.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
There you go. That's kind of some mystic comparison there from yourself. But yeah, in the Championship, Todd Cantwell and Max Aarons, both players who have been touted for big moves, haven't obviously materialized, but both good players. Both have shown that they're excellent at Championship level, and Todd Cantwell had a brilliant debut Premier League season. As you say, 2 young players who are players who are very well touted and could do good things. As one of the comments says here from Box, I mean, there is still that complacency, I think, amongst some of that players and this mentality, because I think, I remember Jamal Lewis, who's obviously gone to Newcastle, probably didn't have one of his probably best moves, but one of our best moves. But Jamal Lewis mentioned something along the lines of, I'm going to paraphrase here, at Newcastle, if we lose, we get a bollocking. Whereas at Norwich, it was kind of, don't worry, go again next week.
It's always next weekend, yeah.
Yeah, and that mentality, I think, has got to change, and I still think it's a mentality Norwich have got this time around. I just don't think we're nasty enough, complacent, not ruthless, and I sometimes see that with Max Aarons and Todd Cantwell's performance. I think, are we really busting a gut sometimes and doing everything we can, particularly at Premier League level? And I think, Norwich are probably complacent at this level, and under Daniel Farke, haven't got that mentality behind the scenes to stay up, because, as I said, this time around we've spent a lot of money, but I just don't know, mate. I just don't see that that mentality and that desire to win games.
See, it's strange, because I go back to what you had to say then about that, you don't see that sort of farting attitude. I think the only time I've sort of seen that fart from Norwich was probably when you played us last time in the Premier League, and in the end it cost you 2 players, which is it's mad enough to say. We'll take a look at a couple of comments. Obviously, Doug said, "Evening, Daniel and Lewis." Evening, Doug. Hope you are well. Thank you for tuning in. Hope everything's going well with you and yours. Rich from Rich Sports says, first points for Norwich. Who knows? This is definitely a game where if you're a betting man, don't touch it. Don't touch it, because this is a coupon buster. This is one of those where Norwich could have an absolute masterclass, or Burnley could just turn up, and we don't know. We don't know who's good. It's all about who's there on the day, who wants it more. And we've
I
already
think
seen the comment box.
what I'm going to say, though, I think a lot of betting people in the Norwich community would put it on Burnley at the moment. You never know.
You do. It's a 50-50 chance, and exactly as Box says, it's a 6 point. It really is. Do you feel as well that? I mean, I go back to the game you had against Arsenal. You were really, really unlucky in that game. I thought that was probably one of the best games you've actually had in the Prem. You did really well to, I was going to say to keep it at 1. That's a bit harsh to say. I was going to say sort of, I thought you deserved something from that game, in my opinion. Obviously, the last game, the Everton game, talk to us about that more than anything. Obviously, that was the last fixture that you had.
Yeah, I think Arsenal was probably our best display. Had some good spells in it, but the first goal was always going to be critical. I think it was quite an even first half, and we played some good stuff. But Arsenal started to dominate. Norwich didn't play a central defensive midfielder in that game, which was an odd decision. And Arsenal eventually got more space. They got their goal, and they deserved the win from there. But Norwich was certainly in the game. But Everton was an interesting one, and from a Norwich perspective, we've changed our tactics. So we it's been a little bit all over the place. Under our 4 or 5 years under Daniel Farke, we've played the 4-2-3-1, which has worked really well. Even in the Premier League, okay, we got relegated comfortably, but there was a clear identity. And what's I think annoyed most Norwich City fans this time around is there's no identity, there's no balance between the defence and attack. I think we've scored 2, conceded 16, something like that. And yeah, it's just a little bit all over the place. Everton, we went to a back 5, so we brought in Gibson into that kind of back line and took one of
Says it all.
What's that, mate?
Says it all.
I don't know why you guys hate Ben Gibson, but I guess I haven't seen him in a claret shirt. But
neither did we.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly Dyche didn't fancy him, and maybe he had a point at that level. But we went to a back 5 and didn't really work. We had some neat possession around in our own half, but when Everton put the press on, we didn't have the midfield capabilities to get out the press, mainly because we had no creative players on the pitch, because we went far too defensive with our lineup and personnel. So we just hoofed it to Pukki and Sargent, and Pukki's not great in the air, and if we do that against Burnley, you guys are going to have a field day in terms of your physicality. Second half was a bit more promising. We pinned Everton back a little bit more, but we still didn't really put any consistent pressure on Everton. We've had some spells in games, mate. We've had 15, 20-minute spells where we've looked okay, but we've never looked like putting a good half of football together, and that's what worries me. And there's this crazy stat with Norwich, which will bring you confidence. I think in our last 31 Premier League games where we've conceded the first goal, how many do you reckon we've lost?
Because it's a stat, I'm going to say about 27, 26.
Yeah, every single one of them. Last 31
wow.
games, we've lost them all. And that's probably quite indicative of that mentality at Norwich at the moment. So, changing formation, a back 5, which hasn't made us more solid. A touch maybe, but there's still those individual errors. And Daniel Farke just hasn't got that balance between that attacking side and that defensive side at the moment. Couple of positives to take from Everton, but if we're going to play like that against Burnley, I think we will lose.
Yeah, I think going back to our game against Everton, you've pretty much hit the nail on the head with the way Everton set up. They make you feel like you're overrunning the midfield. That way, your back 4, your back 5, etc. Pretty much breached by this point. They've got the pace out wide to draw you out as well. We noticed that, as I say, probably it sounds a bit cliche, but the worst thing we could have done was score. Because as soon as we did, all 11 of them had a rocket up their arse, and they didn't half put a shift in after that. I mean, I will go back to Richard's comment. Obviously, talking of Everton, the game prior to that, another Scouse side, you had Liverpool in the Cup. Do you feel now that the Cup's out the way, the Premier League, obviously, it has to be the main focus, of course, staying in the division. But do you feel now that that's it? Forget about it. It's gone. Sod the Cup. This season, we're back up. Let's stay up. And obviously, included in that is, are Norwich prepared for that?
Yeah, I mean, the cup's always an interesting one. Whether people you can look at two sides of a coin. Some people say it's a distraction. Some people say, a cup opportunity offers a chance of, winning, and you need to install that winning mentality. Personally, yeah, not too fussed about the cup this time around, and Liverpool deserved their win. But yeah, on that comment, are Norwich prepared for the Premier League? There's been so many seasons where I'd answer that question with no, and I've seen quite a lot of Norwich City seasons, whether it be under Chris Hughton or Alex Neil, and obviously Farke's first season, where I would say no. But this time around, in personnel, I honestly do. I think we've got a really deep squad. Losing Buendia is massive. Buendia is, in terms of his individual quality, the most talented player I've ever seen in a Norwich City shirt. And also we lost Oliver Skipp, who was absolutely brilliant in central defensive midfield. He's doing good things with Tottenham as well. So we lost.
I thought Kieran Dowell would have been pretty decent. I thought he would have been a pretty decent sort of like slot in that Oliver Skipp role for you.
But possibly. I think Kieran Dowell, Farke's like to play Dowell a little bit more forward, so he's probably played him actually as a number 10. So yeah, I mean, I probably would say they're slightly different players. And look, to be fair, Dowell hasn't had a look in, but we've lost Buendia and Skipp, and obviously on paper that looks quite, obviously it is a bad thing, but we've replaced Skipp with Norman, who has been our best player this season in central defensive midfield. He's only played the last 3 or 4 games, to be fair to him. And yeah, losing Buendia was massive, but we signed Rashita for 10 million, Zolis for 10 million, Sargent for 10 million, Pierre-Lise Malou for 5 million. So we've certainly, put a number of players in kind of to fill that gap. And to be brutally honest, even if we had Buendia at this moment, he'd create a couple of chances for us, but I still think Buendia wouldn't solve our defensive issues, and I don't think we'd be scoring too many more goals at this level. So in terms of personnel, I think we're prepared and we've got a decent squad to do things. But as I said, under Farke, he just hasn't got the balance right at the moment.
As you said there, with having Buendia in the squad, you still don't think that it would be, a goal scorer, goals galore. Even with him in the team. So I look back at players like Amir Zaki when he was at Wigan, Michu at Swansea. Do you think Pukki was that sort of a one-season wonder when it came to the Premier League last time?
Well, yeah. Firstly, with Buendia, that we had him 2 years ago, and when Norwich are playing well, he's absolutely sensational. He really adds to it, but. Yeah, just didn't it? It doesn't. Football's a team game, and when your defense is bad, there's only so much Buendia can do. So I don't think he'd be solving those issues. He'd give us a bit more creativity. But I think what Buendia would do is help Pukki. I mean, Buendia and Pukki, I think, had the most goal assist contributions together in the championship, and. Pukki is a much better player because of Buendia. Pukki is the type of player who I think he's only scored 1 headed goal in his time at Norwich. He doesn't thrive off crosses. He thrives from overloads in the middle of the pitch and through balls from Buendia, Stupidman, whoever it's been. Pukki thrives off those kind of, playing on the last man and running in behind. So if you play Pukki as kind of a target man, he's not going to win anything. That's what Celtic did a few years back. And Pukki thrives off kind of being on the last man. So if you play to his strengths, then he's not a one-season wonder. No, I think Pukki can score 10, 15 goals if you play to his strengths. And he's already got 2 goals this season, which isn't bad. So no, I wouldn't say Pukki's a one-season wonder. But and if you play to his strengths, then he's going to score goals.
Definitely. Do you think, obviously, the signing of Sargent and was it Rashika? Do you think, obviously, are they forwards? Would you say?
Sargent's a forward, can play in the number 10, and Rashita's a winger.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you brought them players in for a decent amount of money as well. I mean, you managed to pretty much steal them from, I think, was it Werder Bremen and
both clubs, yeah, same club.
Yeah, was it right? Bloody hell! So yeah, it's one of those where, you know, the price you paid. Do you think they just need that one season to sort of settle in? Maybe if you can stay up, who knows? You may get the best out of them next season. Do you see signs of them being an ever present for Norwich?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I always buy into the idea of you know, giving a player a season. I think that if the manager's good enough, and you know, you've seen players before can have a really good first season from a new country and then have a terrible second season because the playing style changes. I've seen promise, glimpses. I've seen 10, 15-minute spells where they can have a good game. So yeah, there is that promise there. But look, Norwich are on a -14 goal difference after 6 games, and the Norwich City community is in a bleak place because we don't want to see Farke sacked, but we do want to see Norwich try and give it a good go at staying in the Premier League, and that's where we're at the moment. I think, as you say, Sargent and Rashita, big money. Rashita's our club record signing. Snippets of promise, but I don't think they're being utilised in the best way at the moment by Daniel Farke, and that's kind of my assessment of it at the moment, mate.
Fair play, fair play. Connor, who's in the chat, thanks for joining us, Connor. He says, I think this either will be a good win for Burnley or the start of a run of points for Norwich. I said that to you earlier, didn't I? To be fair, I said it could be one of those. It's definitely going to go either way. He also does have Norwich to stay up this year as well.
I wish you had that confidence, mate.
To be fair, a lot of people are saying this could be the season that we go down as well. So who knows? It could be Dash against Farke next season for the teams to get promoted.
Have you been consistently in the Premier League? Has it been 4 or 5?
It's coming up 6 years now, I think.
Wow. Okay.
It's coming up 6 now, and he's been in charge. Yeah, he's been in charge for 9. So yeah, it's been interesting. My only problem is obviously there's barely a plan B sometimes, and it can really affect us. We've sort of just got to hope that plan A works, and if it doesn't, then oh shit. Have
you enjoyed that style of football as well, mate? Because I look at Palace, of course, they've had that kind of, with Hodgson, maybe that kind of similar style of football, and they've changed things with Patrick Vieira. And look, if Roy Hodgson stayed at Palace, I'm sure they probably would have still stayed up. So yeah, how do you feel with Dyche at the moment? Do you kind of, I imagine you're still happy with him, but is there a part of you that wants to
massively.
a different style?
To be fair, I think obviously now at the moment with Burnley, it's sort of an adaptive period. New owners, you know, Dash has had a bit of money to be backed, you know, and it's only the first window that he's been backed. You know, let's see what January brings. I know January's a bit shit for every club, to be honest, but let's see how that goes. You know, then next season. I mean, for me, the fact that we've tied Sean Dash down to a new 4-year deal is brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I think you get rid of Sean Dash, you sort of like, it's almost like slipping a disc, but then removing the span. You know, once you try to get it sorted, you've removed the span. You know, we don't want that. We've almost had that already when, you know, during Owen Coyle and stuff. You know, when he jumped ship, the whole town just, you know, as they usually say, because of how small the town is, one person gets kicked, we all limp. And that's sort of how it is. When he left, obviously, you know, it instantly became a Judas because of the fact that who plays 29 games for Bolton and becomes a legend? You're all right. But either way, we won't get into that Owen Coyle debate. But yeah, Sean Dash, I think he's done absolute wonders. And as I say, an adaptation period. He seems to be on, him and the new chairman seem to be on the right, similar paths for what they want, the vision for Burnley Football Club. And he's probably the last of a dying breed as well as Dash. I think he's also one of those men a bit that doesn't just take charge of the football team on the, you know, on the pitch or on the training ground, but one of those that is literally in the chairman's office saying, let's do this upgrade, let's do that, let's work on this. You know, the last time we had a manager like that was Stan Turner, and you know, he was chairman, manager, director. He was everything. He ran the club himself pretty much. He wasn't, but that's the sort of person he was, where he wanted to change the face of Burnley and make it, you know, a success. And in the end, he did. He brought us, to where he could at that time, which was mid-table championship side. And we flirted around there for years. And then obviously we progressed. But I see very similar in Norwich as well, because obviously, I mean, you've had your days you look back on history. You've had your days there in the top flight. We've all been in the lower leagues and up and down. But we're both there now as teams. We're both there in the Premier League. It's going to make for an interesting game. I mean, I'll just go back to players a minute. How the bloody hell did you manage to get Billy Gilmore through the door?
Yeah, we're struggling as well. Fantastic loan deal. Someone who's obviously done brilliantly well at Chelsea. Man the match in the England-Scotland game. Man the match kind of almost every game he played at Chelsea. So yeah, brilliant one to get through the door. And how has he played this season? I would say similarly to how I described Rashita and Sargent. Glimpses of promise. We all know what a fantastic player he is. But yet again, Farke has played him as a central defensive midfielder, a centre midfielder, attacking midfield. He's played him in a 4-3-3, played him in a 5-3-2. So he's been playing kind of all over the shop. And I still don't think Farke has got the best out of him. I think we all kind of know where his best position is, and that's probably alongside a central defensive midfielder. A brilliant signing. But yet again, I'm kind of regurgitating a lot of this at the moment. Probably not adapted in the way we'd expect under Farke, which is disappointing because we know Farke has got an amazing track record with young players. Of course, it might change. As one of the comments said earlier, just one win, one result, can bring so much confidence. And once you have a set system, that can change your season. But yeah, Norwich are a little bit wishy-washy with the system, wishy-washy with the players. Billy Gilmore didn't start against Everton; he was dropped.
Right.
So yeah, it's a weird one.
Definitely. So talking of players, obviously, you've to come up against probably a tough Burnley side. You know what you're getting. You're getting that hard-fought game. They'll take the game to you. Where do you see Burnley's weakness area is? Where do you think you can exploit the most?
Yeah, I mean, what I like about Burnley is I think it's quite a well-rounded team in terms of that defence is so strong for me, and it's done so many wonders for you over the season with Tarkowski, Ben Mee. So that defence is strong, and obviously you got your strikers in Chris Wood who have caused Norwich so much pain over the years. I think Chris Wood scored in both games 2 years ago. So yeah, a team, as you say, physical bullies, but in that midfield position, maybe haven't quite got that technical quality, and if as maybe some of the other teams, and if Norwich can start to dominate that midfield position, it could be an interesting game, and that's where Norwich City are going to have to do well in this game. I think there's been so many games, take the Everton game. I go back to that one where no one in the middle of the pitch. We didn't have Gilmore playing, didn't have Cantwell. No one in the middle of the pitch was kind of connecting the play and picking up the thirds. And if we can maybe exploit that kind of midfield area, gain control over the ball and, start knocking it about and trying to play our way, I think that's where maybe we could hurt Burnley.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've also got to look at the way we've sort of conceded goals. As you said, similar to yourselves against Everton, when they overrun the midfield, that's how we lost conceded 2 sloppy goals against Brighton. It was the same against Everton. We didn't adapt to the fact that, Brighton brought Lallana on. It opened up our midfield because they get another body in the centre. Everton did the same by bringing on Andre Gomez, and we shit ourselves. We fell apart, and it comes back to bite you in the arse. And I think that's my only sort of gripe I have about Dash, in all honesty, because he says it's about how we adapt to situations. But when it comes to we, is we meaning us on the pitch, or is we meaning that the only tactic off the top of your head is 4-4-2 and you don't know bugger all else? It makes you question what's going on. Like, you've got to be able to adapt to that situation as a manager. Not just the players on the pitch. So yeah, it is going to be a tough one. I mean, for me, I'd probably say trying to utilise down your left-hand side, I think maybe where we could be a lot stronger. I mean, I just see if Goodmanson starts, maybe, we push he likes to cut in, does Goodmanson. So be prepared for a man that likes to just cut in, thinks he's Ian Robben, but the only thing is the only thing he's robbed is a League Two player's left foot, and that's about it. Because that's all he does. He just tries to Ian Robben it and cut in, but his efforts aren't. His efforts don't match what he does.
And I'd love to give you a lowdown on how Norwich's system's going to be as well. But truth be told, I don't know. Farke has just tinkered around so many times. I don't know whether we're going to go with the back five, go back to the back four. So that'd be an interesting one. But yeah, definitely if we play that back five, the midfield, I don't think was flexible enough. They didn't have that kind of work rate in recent games. We got done by Watford as well a couple of weeks back. That was a terrible performance. So yeah, definitely exposing our flanks. You can get us on a 2-week-1 situation and putting crosses in. If you bully us and play to your kind of that physical side, you'll beat us, I think.
I hope so. I'm sorry to say, but of course I hope so. I mean, who would you say is your key player? Which actual player do you think we should look out for?
Yeah, good question. The player I've been most impressed with is Matthias Norman, central defensive midfielder. You won't miss him. He's got silver hair. So I'm sure there could be a couple of funny chants coming from that, as we've heard this season. But no, central defensive midfielder, on loan from a Russian club. I can't remember who from, but if we buy, if we stay up, we buy him for £15 million. He's a Norwegian international. Excellent performances over the recent international break, setting up a goal for Haaland, and good player, 6 foot, kind of combative, good work rate. So I like the look of him. And then Todd Cantwell's obviously someone who's been out for the last couple of games because of personal reasons, but thankfully he looks okay now. And that kind of creativity in the middle of the park could hurt you. And as we spoke about at the top of the show, if we play to Pukki's strengths and forget the wing play, because your defense are going to beat Pukki every day of the week in terms of physicality and long balls. But if we can get Pukki on the last man, if we can beat Burnley's press, if you decide to press us, sometimes we're playing out from the back and get Pukki running behind. I think that's something to look out for as well.
Interesting, very interesting. Obviously, flipping the question around, who do you see as our threat? Obviously, I understand there's Chris Wood, who's obviously, is notorious for putting the ball in the back of the net in recent games against yourselves. But is there anybody else in that squad, including Chris Wood, that stands out for you, that you think is going to be a big threat?
Chris Wood's the first. Yeah, Chris Wood's the first guy. He's when he played was it Leicester? He played several years ago as well. He's always bullied us. He's always been Norwich's bogey player, and I'm trying to think back to our games a couple of years ago, and you beat us 2-0 at Turf Moor. I think Chris Wood scored a header from a corner, and also scored in
one at the near post as well, I think.
Yeah, and then he also scored in that game when Norwich went down to 9 men. When we were when we were totally shit after lockdown. So yeah, he's a bully, and good quality deliveries, and I think Chris Wood will prosper, and just your whole back line. I just think it's a solid back line. I know you've probably conceded a few more goals than you would have liked to so far this season, but I just think it's a well-run team. Everyone knows their responsibilities. But yeah, Chris Wood's the one I'm certainly. As Norwich fans, we fear Chris Wood. He's a goal machine against us.
No, fair point. Now, to put you in the manager's shoes, if you was to be picking that team for Saturday's game, who would be your starting lineup?
Yeah, good question, mate. It's one which has got Norwich City fans debating because, as I've spoken about, we've played different systems. 4-3-3 formation hasn't worked. Back five, still not totally convinced. I would personally like to see us revert back to the 4-2-3-1. But I think Farke will go with the back line. Did you say what team I think Farke will play, or my team? Sorry, mate.
Yourself. If you were manager now, who would you start against Burnley? What would you try to alienate?
Yeah, I'd like to see us go back to the 4-2-3-1. So Tim Krul in goal, back four of Aarons, Kabak. I'd go Andrew Omobamidele, which is a name you probably haven't heard of, but you might have heard of him. He did really well for us at the end of the championship, and got his first start against Arsenal. Grant Hanley's been a bit all over the place. Ben Gibson, he's looked okay, but I think Andrew Omobamidele, Farker likes to bring in youngsters, and I think Omobamidele, see what he's about. He's good in the air as well. And then left back, Brandon Williams, central defensive midfield, Matthias Norman alongside Billy Gilmore. I think they complement each other well, and maybe they're not the tallest players, but I think they work hard, and I think you'd probably get the best out of them like that. And then your front three, I'd probably go Cantwell on the left, Rashita on the right, Josh Sargent in that number 10, and Timu Pukki up front. I think that to get the best out, if Norwich City want to survive in the Premier League, you've got to score goals. It's as simple as that. And you've got to get the best out of Pukki. And I think someone like Sargent, who's 6'2", he's a bit of a physical presence, although he hasn't really shown it. But Sargent who can drop into that kind of number 10 role, occupy that space, and then leave Pukki kind of on that last man. I think that's where Norwich City would prosper.
No, fair shout. I mean, I don't even really need to say the Burnley lineup. We all know what's going to happen. If there's going to be one change, it's just going to be the fact that Dwight McNeil's on the left and Goodmanson's going to be on the right, because obviously Cornet took a bit of a knock against Leicester. I mean, he was our he was probably our strongest player in that game. To lose him with a hamstring injury was a bit of a killer, especially after the Not entirely sure. He seems to be walking around on it. It's probably more of not a full pull of the hamstring. He's not torn it. It's probably just more. Yeah, he's not torn it. It's probably just more of a pull. But obviously, it may just be one of those where get this game out the way. There's a free week, and then obviously getting fit for that annual 5-0 drubbing away at Manchester City.
Yeah, I mean, I like the look of him against Leicester from what I saw. How much did you spend on him? Because I was quite happy to see that he's out for this game.
Yeah, roughly around 15 million. That seems to be. I think obviously Ben Gibson prior to Cornet was our biggest signing, biggest transfer fee, and Cornet's overtook it by a couple of 100,000. So, who knows? Who knows? I mean, Dash could just be saying that he's not fit and then just throw him in and go, but I don't think he will. I think Dash likes to be a bit careful. I mean, we've already got quite a threadbare squad as it is. We've always been known for having quite a small squad. But yeah, obviously, it'd just be the usual. Pope in goal, Lawton at right back, Tarkowski, me, Taylor, Westwood, Brownhill, Goodmanson, Dwight McNeil, and I think he's got to stick with Wood and Vidra. I think Vidra, I'm giving him nicknames now. I think Vidra offers us something different. Barnes for me has got to a point now where you go past your sell-by date, don't you? Sometimes, you can thank a player for everything they've done, but I just don't think he's hitting that hearts anymore that we expected. So who knows? But yeah, Vidra does offer a lot different. It's not even in terms of goal scoring, really. Sometimes he just runs around like an headless chicken and pulls that defender out and gives Chris Wood that extra bit of space. Yeah. And sometimes, it's not always about putting the ball in the back of the net. If you can do that and open up space and then utilise it, then he's almost an unsung hero, because people think, well, why is everyone going on about him? He does nothing. He just runs around. But that's people that don't look and analyse the game. They just think, well, he's not scored in ages. So yeah, I'd definitely go with Wood and Vidra. I mean, moving on to that, we've just got to go straight into this. So yeah, this is the penultimate question, I guess. Sorry to put you on the spot, but how do you see the game going, and what's your score prediction?
Oh mate, normally I'm quite a positive fan, to be honest with you. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Norwich City fans were going into this season positively, thinking we'd learn from our mistakes, but that's not happened so far. And from what I've seen from the eye test, I mean, we've changed the system, we've been changing players. I don't see that changing. But Burnley, it offers an opportunity, an opportunity to get something 19th versus 20th. Yes, it's a tough one, mate. If we play against how we did against Everton, I think we will lose. I think Everton were poor on that day. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think Todd Cantwell coming back is probably going to help us. And yeah, just getting something on the board will really help us. But I'm going for a very, very, very optimistic 1-1 draw.
Fair enough. To be fair, when I'm asked on a channel, that's the first thing I'd say. On the road, bring a point back home. I'm happy with that.
You mentioned obviously you haven't won a Turf Moor in about 13 games. We obviously haven't won in the Premier League this season, and we only won the one away game last time around. And if one away win in a Premier League season, it's that spells bottom of the table. So we are not good away from home. I think Farke has only won.
We managed to stay up with one away win all season. Wow. A couple of seasons back we'd not won away from home all season. And then I think it was the second to last away game in the season. We beat Palace. We literally we thumped them about 4-1 or something like that. Wow. So it can be done. Obviously, our home form was absolutely on point at that perspective. I suppose in a way there's got to be a bit of a balance. But who knows? It's definitely going to make for an open game. As a Burnley fan, I'm really not confident. Taking the claret tinted glasses off, of course I want us to win. I think I'm edging on the same sort of scoreline as yourself.
Really?
But
really?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think this is one of those games where you just don't know what's going to happen. Burnley have always been known for being that team that can go up against the big teams and perform, but they come up against teams that they're expected to be in and around at the end of the season and just don't turn up. And it should be the opposite way around, really, because those teams at the top, they're free hits. If you look at it that way, from a fan perspective, they are free hits. You get points off them. Brilliant. You're talking about it in work. You're talking about it with your mates down the pub. You're having a laugh. You're just like, ha. And then the next Arsenal, Man United fan, Man City fan, you're giving it all this. But when it's against a team, a team that's around you, it's almost like well-deserved. You're not celebrating. You're not gloating. It's a case of it was hard fought. You sort of man up about it and go, fair enough, best team won on the day. So yeah, I'm edging towards 1-1, but I'm on my own channel. Of course, I can't stick with 1-1. So I'm gonna go 2-1. I'm gonna go 2-1. I think we need it. I think it may be, with Chris Wood's goal being choked out to penultimately we should have won that game 3-2. I think if you give Vardy's second goal in that Leicester game, when he was on the shoulder of the defender, I think you've got to give Chris Wood in the dying minutes that as well. One rule for one, typical. It's we've been done at Leicester before. Johnny Evans just decided to, fall on his arse, and Chris Wood ended up having a goal ruled out there as well again. So it's notorious the King Power for that. So yeah, I think obviously there'll be some performances where it'll be a case of, come on, let's get our arse into gear. Let's actually see a game off. So who knows? It'll definitely be a hard fought 2-1 if it is. It wouldn't surprise me if we go 1-0 down. It really wouldn't. But I guess that'd be horrible for you to be winning 1-0 and then us coming back and winning 2-1. It'd be obviously a very big sucker punch.
Yeah. Definitely. All I'm going to say, mate, is I think if you've watched every single Norwich City game this season, I think you'd be more confident. That's all I'm going to say.
No, well, who knows? Honestly, first of all, thank you very much, Lewis, for coming on. It's been an absolute honour to have you on the show. Again, tell everybody what you're doing with your channel's name, where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate that. Norwich City Central, similar stuff to you, mate. Match reviews, match previews, podcasts as well. But the content I love doing most is match day experiences, where obviously football is nothing without the fans, and just really enjoy kind of documenting the home and away experiences. But yeah, Norwich City Central for Norwich City content.
Brilliant stuff. So, guys, as Lewis just said, please do go check out his channel. It really does mean a lot to us both in it for the long haul. So, we do it because we love it. That's the reason why we do it. And it's nice. I mean, this channel was born out of lockdown, to be honest. I had toyed with the idea for quite a while, but I thought, sod it, bite the bull by the horns and get it done.
And but sometimes, mate,
here we are.
When you have an idea, you just got to go for it. You can sit and about it, but the most important thing in life, whatever, really, is just to sometimes just go for it, and then there's no harm done doing that. So I've thoroughly enjoyed being on your channel, mate. Best of luck. And I hope to see it, kind of grow more and more. Yeah,
definitely. And if you're ever at the Turf, or I ever make that trip to Carrow Road, hopefully, bump into each other, grab a beer, grab a Bovril if you're in Burnley or whatever, or a Benny and Not, introduce you to one of them. But yeah, thanks a lot for coming on again. It really does mean a lot. Good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously Saturday, I don't think so, but we will see. It's Burnley against Norwich, Saturday, 3 p.m. kickoff. Again, thanks for coming on, Lewis. Lewis says 1-1. I'm going 2-1. Up the Clarets.